So, given that with other such things labeled in the broad sense as outsider, right, like skateboarding, like punk music, you know, like hip hop was, I mean, appropriation is, I would say, almost inevitable. I mean, to one degree or another. Given that, would you say that there's perhaps a way, at least, that street artists could kind of help to massage or manage the process so that by the time that it becomes almost completely appropriated, it's at least in a form that they still find agreeable? Or do you think it's impossible for them to influence this at all?
I think appropriation is more of a problem for street artists than in those other realms. Because other realms are more of a selective world. You don't have to listen to appropriated hip-hop music.
No.
You can stay underground. There will always be the underground. You will never destroy graffiti, street bombing type culture.
No.
But
once you have the teenagers buying T-shirts and products and so on,
that's been for years, and it hasn't. We have Mark Echo, we have his video game, we have every wannabe kid on eBay selling fake Banksy prints. It hasn't hurt the people on the street doing it, and it won't. The people who are mostly getting upset about it are the same people who are calling people sellouts. I mean, it is more of a problem for street art because we do have the same world. It is unlike music, where it's a virtual space.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shelf space, so to speak. In street art, there is only a limited amount, which is why we have this constant butting up against with advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So, unlike appropriation of hip hop or punk, where you can just ignore Avril Lavigne and stay, in your underground scene, it's very difficult to ignore the appropriation when they are going over your space, and
it's much more aggressive.
Well, it's much more of a battle for the same space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Avril Lavigne is playing sold-out concerts to, I don't even know, teeny boppers
many hundreds of
in different forums than the sort of places I went to when I was into punk.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not, to me, it's not an issue unless you're really concerned about them having your culture. Like that.
So
then
it's not a battle unless you make it one, you would say.
Right.
With
Whereas with street art,
with the exception of the competition for space.
Right. We have an actual overlapping of worlds.
Competition for resources, in essence.
In essence. So, what was the original question?
Well, I'm curious. I mean, appropriation is more or less inevitable, and as you say, it's already pretty much begun.
It's been for years. If you look at design, there's so many drips.
Yeah, well, yes, of course, yes. But I mean, do you feel that it might get to a point where it's like almost completely appropriated, and as it's continually appropriated, do you feel that the people who are more, quote unquote authentic, the actual street artists, as opposed to the advertisers, aping street artists, can they do anything to influence this ongoing appropriation, or are they simply passively having to watch as their work is appropriated? Can they not have some influence on this process? Or are they just, as I say?
Well, I mean, again, it's a cultural movement, and you are one person, and there is no one voice piece for punk rock or hip hop.
No.
So there's no union. There's no. But what I have noticed online is that more artists are standing up for their copyright, and they're not letting designers or other business people just blatantly. Take photographs of their work and rip it off, which is, I think, a move in a good direction, but it's also kind of, I don't know, I
would say it's a pleasant side effect of the internet becoming so integral to the preservation of the works, because it's much easier to refer to something, even if your image has been wiped since the advertising company appropriated it. You can just point to, your website or other people who have Flickr accounts, say, and they take pictures of your work, and you can use that as evidence to argue that it's your image, right?
Sure, but I mean, photography has been a part of it from the beginning as well. People were always taking.
True, but I mean,
it was always inferior.
But there's, the distribution, right? That's what I'm saying through the internet.
I would just argue that communication is faster.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like digital photography has changed how people document graffiti or street art. It just made it easier. People were doing the same thing. But again, that's off topic. I don't know.
It's all right. So basically, you feel that, like, as I say, artists speaking up for each other about copyright. So they do have a voice to a point, right? I mean, they can somewhat affect. I'm not saying can they take complete control of the appropriation process. That's impossible.
The only thing
can they influence it?
The only thing artists can control is their own choices. And again, like as I don't care how hardcore you are as a punk band, you're not stopping Avril Lavigne.
No.
However, when you are offered, you know, that
Money
deal,
to do
you are able to make a choice.
Estimates.
Right. So again, if it were to come to me, which again is I only really feel comfortable. I don't want to judge Faux Reel's choices or anything, but if it were my choice, because I don't want it overshadowing my other work,
You might have said.
I wouldn't have agreed to it. I would be trying, to answer your question in a roundabout way, if I could control how companies are moving in, and they're moving in with greater, I would try and direct it more again towards the sponsorship model, where
They're
you have a
helping
bunch
people
of
do
companies.
their thing, and it's just, as you say, for the coolness of being associated with them, but they're not dictating what they're doing.
Yeah, and personally, I'd find that really valuable if instead of them, I assume, since Dan Bergeron is openly Faux Reel,
Yeah.
and Vespa is openly behind this campaign,
It's
and
cute to
since there's
know-
enough of a vibe about it that people know about it, that there's been at least a few business owners being like, what the fuck, Vespa?
Yeah.
You owe me, you know, 1,500 for cleanup or whatever ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
But they
But
paid
as,
it.
As you say, yes, they just pay the money, and
So
actually,
I-
it's part of the whole cost of doing business.
I would love to see, for, I don't know, some horrible corporation like Nike or Coca-Cola
Yeah.
to have, if they're going to do it, instead of them paying, like Sony, paying people to do guerrilla ads, instead of that model, which has been the dominant model,
Yeah.
them having a in-house group of artists. They're like, look, you have a blank check of, you know,
Yeah.
you are caught,
So you have the Nike.
call up the Nike lawyers.
Yes, call
you know,
up- you would have-
they'll write you Nike money.
Yeah.
You know, like
But
that would be
crew
way
doing
better.
their thing.
Yeah, and you don't have to tag Nike.
Come
You
like
don't,
a
you don't have to
team.
wear Nikes. You just
Do your
all it
thing.
is that Nike on their website can be like, look at who we are sponsoring. Aren't we cool?
Don't you want to buy our shoes?
Yeah,